I'm in the shop today milling some lumber for a custom jewelry box using this piece of cherry, and right now it's still about 1 inch thick, so I've got to run it through the planer and get it down to 3/4. Alright, hard part is done. Alright, I'm going to glue up a blank for the lid and then call it a day. This blank is oversized in both directions, so I'll trim it down. Trim it down to size after I get the box built. It's roughly going to be 8.5 by 11, but may be a tad under, a tad over. So I'll wait until the assembly is done before I make the lid, because I want as close to a perfect fit as possible. Got to resaw some pieces of stock to make the drawer and the box bottom. And I've got to route some slots on the inside of the box pieces for the shelves to fit in. Okay, I'm going to glue up these little strips to make the bottom panel of the box and call it a day. Made good progress in getting the parts milled today. Hoping I can finish up making all the bits tomorrow, so I can start getting some assembly done. Well, I say that I've got to engrave the panels before I can do any assembly, but I'm going to get the edges routed first, so once the engravings are done, everything will be ready to go. Get just enough pressure, but not too much. Get this thing to bow up. I always like to put plastic underneath my weights. There's something about this tight bond glue will make dark spots if I let the weight contact the glue. I never noticed that with any other kind of glue, but I ran into an issue like that with this stuff one time, and it was a real hassle to deal with. Alright, I think that's good. And here are the parts I've gotten done so far. Well, I say done. We're getting close to being done. I've got the jewelry box dry clamped so I can take measurements off of it, and it is exactly 8.5 by 11. I'm cutting the lid just a hair oversized, it's being cherry. In case I get some blade burn, I can take it over to the joiner and clean that up. I guess I need to turn on my noise and dust collector. Right, I'm getting ready to engrave the lid of this jewelry box. Getting ready to route a rabbet along the bottom edge of the box pieces, so the bottom panel will be recessed and not attached flush. I used a spiral down cut to make those rabbets. I'm not sure that was the best choice of bit. It tended to chatter toward the end of the cut. I'm not sure why, but it came out good and clean, smooth, no burning, so I'm happy with it. In order to be able to miter these small pieces, I've decided to glue them into the front. They're going to, this is the spot where the drawer is going. So I'm going to glue them up like this, and then cut this miter after it's glued. There are probably several ways I could have done this, but with the stock I've got to work with, I just decided this was the best way to do it. I built another box just like this, and I cannot remember how I did this part. I don't remember it being a big hassle, but then again, maybe I've just forgotten. I'm going to use this little jig to keep the ends square so I don't have any misalignment issues. If there's one piece of advice I could give about building anything, make notes. Make lots of notes, lots of really detailed notes. I built a version of this jewelry box about a year ago, and I made some notes, but not nearly enough. It's been a real hassle trying to figure out what I did to get some of these parts made, and figuring out which bits to use and the depths to set. Luckily, I still had the jewelry box that I built, so I'm using it as a guide, but it's still I'm still having to figure out a lot more than I should have to. At any rate, I'm getting ready to route the mortises for the hinges. Be using these oil rubbed bronze hinges. This jig works for the box and for the lid. I believe I could have gone ahead and assembled the box and still use this, but I already got it set up, so I'm going to go ahead and do those now and worry about assembling it later. Should have put on a dust mask. I always think about stuff like that after the fact. I'll be saving these pieces for templates in case I have to build another one. I never really expected to build another one of these boxes because it was such a pain to deal with. But I got a custom order for one. Made the mortises just a little bit deeper than I had to for the hinges themselves, just to make sure that the heads of the screws clear, because the screws I'm using don't countersink all the way into these hinges. Nothing more annoying than going to close the lid and it won't close because the screw heads are hitting. I'm set up to cut the mortises for the lid. I'm making sure when I cut these to go in on both sides of each hinge, and in order to avoid tearing out. I don't want to come around and come out this way and rip part of the back of the lid off. Well, we're down to the part I've been dreading the most, glue up. I was able to get the little blocks mitered. Got them nice and flush, looking good. It was a little hairy, but got it done. It's mainly just difficult getting the blade set right because it requires so much precision. One of these days I'm going to break down and buy me some little brushes to spread the glue. Make life a little easier for me. This is a good little clamp, but I need a second one. I bought this thing years ago for doing picture frames. It's good for boxes. But obviously one is not enough. Alright, that's about as close to perfection as you can get. I've got a miter, these pieces for the drawer box. I've given up trying to cut these miters on these tiny pieces on my table saw, and instead I'm using my sander just to sand them to a 45. The saw blade always seems to blow them apart. Got to route a slot in the bottom of these drawer pieces so the bottom panel will have a place to ride. I'm getting ready to glue up the drawer box. Of course, the bottom panel will be floating. Okay, I'm marking out the holes, screw holes for the box and the lid. Raise the lid up so it would be level with the top of the box, so I could line them up to get the screw holes accurate. The mortises have a little bit of play in them, not much. Anyway, it took me 5 minutes to find my number one bit. One of these days I'm gonna have to get organized. For now, I'm just gonna put the center screw in because I will have to take these hinges back off. But I want to test the fit of the lid, see how it looks. Ah, look at there. Beautiful. Installing the drawer is a real challenge. I'm having to make tiny runners for the slides to ride on. I've already made these two upper ones. Now I'm getting ready to drill the hole in the door for the little handle. Didn't say door, I mean drawer. That will keep it aligned on the box, keep the front aligned on the box. And once I get that drilled, I'm going to put a little glue on the back in between the two pieces to hold them in place. If I had more room to work with, I would just put a couple screws in, but I think gluing it is the only good option. I got to keep the spacing dead on the sides of the drawers in order for everything to line up and look right. Okay, I got the drawer slides cut. I'm getting ready to install the first one. Got it clamped in place. So my distance will be consistent. Basically, I want it perfectly straight across the side. Make a little countersink here to get the drill bit started. Nice. I almost screwed up. This is going to be a process. I'm going to drill one hole and put the screw in, and then I have to remove one of the clamps to be able to put the next screw in place. I'll leave one clamp on to keep the slide from twisting. Okay, I got the top runners in. The gap on the drawer is looking good. It's very consistent. I don't think I can get it any closer. So now I've got to cut a couple more for the bottom runners, which basically means making a super precise measurement and cutting them dead accurately, which is a real pain on this thin stock. Okay, I changed the camera angle, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Of course, I'll probably be blocking it with my arm, but anyway, just putting in a couple screws. Had to make a tiny adjustment on the front of the bottom slides, but it is marvelous. It's fitting really nice. It opens, closes just fine. No dragging, no need for adjustment. I think I will round over the bottom, round over the back edges of the slides to make it a little bit easier to align, but it goes in pretty easy. Yep, I don't think I could have done any better than that. Now, gotta get this bottom panel installed. But first, I'm gonna burn my logo on it. I'm gonna give the whole outside of the box a light sanding with 320 grit. The drawer front is a little lighter than the rest of the box. It was freshly sanded. All the parts on the outside of the box came from the same piece of lumber, so the color should match, but I sanded the drawer front just yesterday, and all of these other parts have been sanded for a good while, and if you know anything about cherry, it darkens rapidly. So in order to get these get the colors closer before I put the finish on, I want to give it everything else a light sanding to try to lighten the color up just a little bit. We'll see what happens. It may just be that this portion of the wood was lighter than the front, because as you can see, it's got lighter streaks and areas in it. But I want to do everything I can to make it match as good as possible. Look, I remembered to put on my gloves before I started applying the finish. It's a miracle. My son mentioned to me that lint-free cloths don't mean the cloths don't have any lint in them. It means that you don't have to pay extra for the lint. And I have to agree with him on that. Okay, for the finishing touch on the jewelry box, I'm going to line the drawer and the upper tray with this red crushed velvet. I'm using Super 77 spray adhesive to hold it down. I'm going to mask off about 1/4 of an inch all the way around on each side to help keep me from getting adhesive from the fabric onto the edges of the box. These are just slightly oversized, So I'll be tucking them in. There's a little bit of a gap above the bottom panel. I'll be tucking it in like the way carpet layer tucks carpet under baseboard. It's a nice classy touch if you ask me. And it's the same process for the top. No point in shooting that. And there it is. Only thing left to do is put the fuzzy feet on the bottom. I'm calling it done.